What's going on, guys? It's Fight Season MMA, and today I want to make a video talking about how can Alex Pereira kind of go and grow his career inside the organization. It has just been 3 years that Alex Pereira made his debut at UFC 268 as the feature of the prelims. He had one of the craziest flying knee knockouts to start his UFC title reign, and then right after that, beat Bruno Silva, beat Sean Strickland, fought Israel Adesanya the first time at UFC 281, won the belt, fought Izzy again, lost, and then moved up to light heavyweight and is now undefeated in the light heavyweight division, beating Jan Blachowicz, Yuri Prochazka twice, Jamal Hill, and Khalil Roundtree Jr. Alex Pereira kind of has the sky's the limit, but he is kind of getting on the older side of his UFC career. So I kind of just want to talk about today, how high can Alex Pereira go in being one of the UFC GOATs inside the organization? Even if you look at Alex Pereira's time being a short 3 years in mixed martial arts, really inside the organization, he already has one of the most illustrious careers to date. So I kind of want to break down his accomplishments so far, what he can do in the future, kind of how his activity is impacting everything, and of how truly Alex Pereira is one of the most special fighters the UFC has ever seen. But before we jump into the video, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe if you guys enjoy the UFC content. And while you're down there, please turn on the post notifications so you guys are always and furtherly notified as UFC content releases every single day. But without further ado, let's jump right into the video talking about what is Alex Pereira's limit in the greatness category when considering him as a UFC star. So Alex Pereira, after coming inside the UFC 3 years ago, almost to the day, he has become one of the biggest stars inside the organization. I remember we came into the UFC, Joe Rogan was kind of, putting him all up there, saying that he's one of the greatest mixed martial artists of all time. He's kind of done this thing where he's one of the greatest kickboxers, and no one knew if he would be effective inside the organization. But right then and there, he scored one of the craziest knockouts in UFC history with that flying knee at UFC 268. Only then he has knocked out a lot of the competition he has faced. He has only lost once inside the UFC, and that was to Israel Adesanya. He has gone to 2 decisions, one of those being split against Jan Blachowicz there, and the other one being Bruno Silva. And genuinely, he is one of the best, most exciting fighters inside the organization. I kind of want to talk, what is Alex Pereira's ceiling on the GOAT list currently? Because Alex Pereira has all of the makeup to be one of the greatest fighters in UFC history. He is currently the number 2 pound-for-pound fighter within the organization, right behind Islam Makhachev, over John Jones, Ilia Topuria, and all these other individuals. And genuinely, he has everything for the sky to be the limit, especially inside a favorable light heavyweight division. So if we kind of break down his previous title reign, he has some crazy knockouts, especially with the UFC 300 knockout against Jamal Hill, the UFC 303 head kick against Yuri Prochazka, the UFC 295 knockout against Yuri Prochazka, the UFC 281 knockout against Israel Adesanya was crazy as well. And even his intro fight against Nikolaitis at UFC 268. He has some of the most impressive knockouts in UFC history. And being able to finish fights in that fashion is only something that is going to continue to grow your stardom. We know that there's fighters who have fought inside the organization for a very long time. And if you look at their all-time GOAT status, just because they haven't been able to finish fights at the rate that Alex Pereira has, they're going to definitely be lower. Take someone like Aljamain Sterling. Probably someone who's been inside the organization for a very, very, very long time compared to Alex Pereira. But if you look at the GOAT status between Pereira and Aljo all time, you got to put Pereira above him. Has 2 division champion, has almost, the same amount of title defenses in the light heavyweight division as Aljo did at bantamweight. He's also won the middleweight title. And genuinely, he doesn't have that finishing ability quite like Alex Pereira does in total. But what can Alex Pereira do in the future? Because I know that there's a lot of fights that the UFC fans want to see Pereira take. The first fight, and I think the most important fight for Alex Pereira's legacy, is taking this fight with Makhachev Ankalaev. I kind of made a video talking about this fight already, which I'll link right here. But really, Makhachev Ankalaev is thought to be Alex Pereira's hardest challenge because of his wrestling background. The only issue is Makhachev Ankalaev doesn't really have a wrestling background compared to what other individuals truly think. Makhachev Ankalaev is that type of fighter to go in there, stand, trade, bang, do a lot of different stuff that would be very favorable to Alex Pereira, considering that he's got a very rudimentary and simple fighting style compared to someone like Yuri Prochazka. Jamal Hill is a little bit more complex than him. Makhachev Ankalaev is very basic. He's kind of got a lot of the same things, and truly is something that is really going to not throw Alex Pereira off track. Another thing that Alex Pereira could possibly do in his future is he could jump up to the UFC heavyweight division and probably face the interim champion currently, that being Tom Aspinall. That would be the biggest win in UFC history, considering that would make Alex Pereira the first 3-division champion. And ultimately, if he could get that win, I don't see how he couldn't be the UFC GOAT, considering that he would be an individual who would win 3 belts in 3 respective different weight classes, that being 185, 205, and under 265. And truly, that would be one of the greatest accomplishments in UFC history. Alex Pereira has had a very short UFC career, but the amount of hidden gems and the activity that he has presented throughout is something that is incredible to see each and every time he sets foot in the octagon. This year in 2024 alone, he has had 3 fights. He took one to save UFC 300. They had no main event. He took that fight on 6 weeks' notice. He literally came in and saved UFC 303 after Conor McGregor pulled out with a broken toe. Alex Pereira actually fought that fight with a broken toe on 2 weeks' notice against Yuri Prochazka, getting the second round knockout about 5 seconds into that second round. In UFC 307, a card kind of like UFC 300, didn't have a main event scheduled, and putting Alex Pereira, one of the biggest stars inside the organization, on that headliner. He made that card one of the most fun, biggest cards of the year, beating a very challenging opponent in Khalil Roundtree Jr. by 4th round TKO by body shot. Alex Pereira has had an illustrious career in that category, and I think that if he keeps stacking up these wins inside the UFC light heavyweight division, I don't think there's any chance that Alex Pereira could be the greatest light heavyweight of all time. I think that goes to Jon Jones, and rightfully so. Jon Jones has the most title defenses in UFC light heavyweight division. He only got 1 loss, which was to a 12-6 elbow, which, as we all know, is now resolved and is not illegal. Furthermore, with these new rules that are in effect as soon as November 1st passed, and was kind of in effect this weekend with this UFC Edmonton card, with the first card to be under the new rules. But Jon Jones hasn't lost a fight inside the organization, unless if you count that. And really, I do think that Jon Jones's legacy in the light heavyweight division will always be there, and I think that someone will eventually pass him, but that's going to be someone who kind of has the same format, coming in at a very young age, fights very often, and kind of keeps his image a tiny bit cleaner. But Alex Pereira, on the other hand, could surpass Jon Jones in the GOAT conversation if you look at his different weight class domination, considering that Jon Jones beat Cyril Gane, who is kind of a one-dimensional fighter at heavyweight. If Alex Pereira could beat Adesanya at middleweight, beat Prochazka, Roundtree, Hill at light heavyweight, and then go up and beat Tom Aspinall, probably the most well-rounded fighter that the UFC heavyweight division has ever seen, that would be maybe one of the biggest, just absolute best things that any UFC fighter could do within the organization. Ultimately, if Alex Pereira could get a win over Tom Aspinall, that would be probably more meaningful than any other win anyone has inside the organization, considering that he would be going up against one of the best, most well-rounded fighters the organization has currently, and for Pereira to be quote-unquote a one-dimensional fighter, quite like Cyril Gane in that category, because he doesn't have a grappling game, but probably has the greatest striking kickboxing game the UFC has ever seen. I truly think that it would be one of the greatest wins in UFC history. Alex Pereira has some of the most favorable, just absolutely best characteristics for a UFC great, and genuinely, I do think that even though his career is at the tail end, considering that he's 37, 38 years old, I do think that a couple more wins, possibly even a heavyweight win, could propel Alex Pereira into being one of the greatest UFC fighters in recent memory. Thank you guys so much for watching this episode of Fight Season MMA, and please let me know what you think down below in the comment section about this take that Alex Pereira could become one of the greatest UFC fighters very, very soon. I know he has only been inside the organization for about 3 years now. He just passed his 3-year threshold of his first UFC fight, which he got that flying knee knockout, but he's gone on an absolute tear ever since, beating the likes of Israel Adesanya, Jan Blachowicz, Yuri Prochazka twice, Jamal Hill, Khalil Roundtree Jr., and other fighters as well along the road. Truly, Alex Pereira is a fighter who is so fun to watch, and I truly cannot believe that he has gone inside the organization, coming from a kickboxing background, and has dominated a completely different sport in the fact and fashion that he does. I think that's truly just a testament to Alex Pereira's work ethic. It's just a testament to who he is as an individual, and genuinely, Alex Pereira is one of the most fun fighters the organization has ever seen in total, and I think that he has a great chance, especially if he can get a couple more light heavyweight title defenses, possibly one against Ankalaev, and another challenger, maybe Roundtree again, maybe Hill again, maybe someone else like that, or possibly even go up and beat Tom Aspinall for the UFC heavyweight title. There's a lot of things in Alex Pereira's path, and I think it's all up to him to see what he does in totality. Ultimately, that's it for this episode of Fight Season MMA. If you guys enjoyed the UFC content, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe if you guys enjoy this take and all the other UFC content that I've released. Check the description. There's videos down there that you guys might enjoy, recent videos and maybe a recent short. And while you're down there, please turn on the post notifications just so you guys are always notified about future UFC content dropping every single day. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will catch you guys very soon with more UFC content and news.